Let's begin our session. Welcome to this session on understanding research data management. This is Wendy, the research data librarian from the CHK library. And on the screen, you can see the workshop slide link for you to download. It's only very simply bit.ly, and then URDM stand for Understanding Research Data Management September 23, and the QR code is on the screen. So it's also in the chat box so that you can download it by clicking to the link. If you have any questions, please feel free to type into the chat box, and me or my colleague Joe will also address to your questions. Yes. So our objectives today is to has the following: to understand the principles in research data management, simply to say RDM, research data management. Another objective is to acquire the knowledge on the practice of RDM, and learn how the influence of having good research data management practice, and to share and reuse the research data. What are the influence of having having your research data to be shared and reused by the others? Before all the in-depth study of research data management, first of all, we have to think about what is research data, or what are research data. Research data could be has a very broad scope. It can be experimental results. It can be measurement from your fieldwork. It can be software programs and outputs. Remember, the programming codes that you use to analyze your electronic formats data, for example, in Excel, are also part of the data. The programming codes are also part of the data. Furthermore, interviews, transcripts of questionnaires or responses and surveys, and also on the Twitter, now called X, or the Facebook. The Facebook response, the comments, and the log and traffic of a website, or some work that you upload to the web. Also, furthermore, the images, the moving images, that is the video or audio, and then historical documents, some archival materials, or some books also. And the physical objects, if you are doing fine arts or architecture, you may also have some physical objects. So those could be your data too. So with all the data, how we can work with it, and we will explore this topic today. Research data could be divided into different types. It could be text. It could be numbers, it could be multimedia, as what I mentioned, the video or the images, the development code, the algorithm that you use for analyzing data, and the discipline specific, for example, genome data. It can also be divided by categories. For example, observational, when you observe in an event, how many people come to the event in each hour? That is observational data that you have. If you do an experiment, for example, checking the light reflection of a glass, then that is experimental data. Simulation data, you make up a model, and with that model, you got some data results from that model. That is the simulated data. Derived or compounded data are those data that you derive from another source of data. For example, there is another set of data that is already existing in data repository. Then you take this data set and further derive it for another set of data. That is derived data. Referential or canonical data, that is compiling several data sets comes together and they can work with each other. This is canonical data. So this is how the data could be created and divide the data into categories. And in the research life cycle, that you plan your research, starting from the yellow part on the left, plan your research, and then you undertake your research, doing some study of your research topic, and then you publish your research into a journal article, journal book, or even physical books or electronic books, and then you further disseminate and preserve your research. So this is the research life cycle. Your research output will generate the next research topic that someone else or you further do another planning of research. With this research life cycle, we also have the data life cycle generated. During your planning of research, you will have to create a data management plan, which is a physical document that you record how you will manage your research data. So this is the this data management plan is done during the research planning stage. So in the next stage, when you undertake your research, you collect your data, you describe your data, give some notes to your data in your notebook or in the computer file formats, storing your files. And then you also analyze your stage data and store your data. So during the undertaking research stage, data is greatly involved in the data life cycle. And then when you publish your research, nowadays many publishers are asking researchers to publish and share your data too. Not only the data in Excel format, but maybe also the algorithm which you use for analyzing the data. So they would like you to share your data in the data repository, or and provide a DOI for sharing your data. So this is the publishing research stage. Then when you publish your research, you are now also requested to publish and share your research data too, properly in a data repository. And then next, disseminate and preserve your research. That you preserve, discover, and reuse, preserve your data and let others to discover your data. At the same time, they discover and reuse your data for the next research topic. So this is the data life cycle, which is going round and round like the research life cycle. So the research life cycle and the data life cycle are closely related to each other. So to conclude, the data life cycle involves data management planning, data collection, data analysis, storage and backup, publication and data sharing, and preservation and reuse. So why is research data management an issue? Three main points here. The digital technologies now are used in research, and it can enable new research and scientific paradigms. When you share your research in the future, or you reuse another set of data which is already existing in the data repository, then this allows you to allows research to be further developed. So the digital technology enables new research insights from the same set of data. And then the challenge is to ensure digital research findings can be reproduced and cited. Cited, that's I've already slightly mentioned that when you put your data in a data repository, you should be given a DOI, permanent identifier for for going to your research data, which is deposited in a data repository. So with this DOI, others can cite your research data. And when you share your data for peer review, the data should also be reproduced, because the peer reviewers will check whether your research topic is valid. Research results is valid. So reproducing your research outputs is very important in the research data lifecycle in the research field now. And most importantly, research funders and publishers now know that digital research data can be expensive to produce, but less expensive to share. So they would like you, because it's very expensive to produce data. It takes time, it takes money. The funders and publishers would like you to share your data in the future and let others to reuse your data for further research. There are a lot of requirements from different funding agencies now. For example, UGC, the AOE and the TRS scheme both ask you to share your data in a timely manner at the end of your research project. Furthermore, in the completion report of your research projects, you have to state where you deposit your research data, in which data repository that you deposit your research data in the future, so that someone else can access and share them for further research. And for the GRE and ECS scheme, in the project statement question, that is question 14, you are also asked to state how you gather your data, how the experiments with the data is like, how the data will be observed, analyzed, and critiqued. So these are some notes from the GRF and ECS application form. And in the same form, it also asks you, is the proposed project likely to generate data sets of retention value? Whether you will generate any data that will be shared in the future, and they are valuable to be shared. And would you like to share your data within 12 months after the research project? Maybe you will ask, I put a lot of time, much time to spend on creating my research projects data, creating the data. I spend a lot of time collecting them, massage them, clean them. Why do I need to share them to the others? Will the others make use of it and take all the topics that I can be derived from this data sets for further research, and I will lack the room for further research? In fact, it is not a problem. Sharing your data is just like sharing your research outputs, your idea from your journal article. It is the same way that you share your data. When you share your research outputs, your idea in your journal article, when someone else uses your research output idea, then they have to cite you. They have to acknowledge you. The same here. When someone uses your data, when you deposit your data in a data repository and someone uses it, and they have to acknowledge you. And if you are getting funding from the RGC, then someone else, when they use your data, they have to acknowledge you, cite you, and cite the data sets, DOI, in their work when they publish. So it has given you some research impact by letting someone else to use your data. Furthermore, here in the GRF and ECS scheme, they also ask you to states in the completion reports where you deposit your data. This is the same as the other schemes. And from the funding agencies in Hong Kong, UGC, there is a great discussion of having a data management plan in grant proposal. It's not yet a compulsory components in this year's grant proposal application, but this may be a compulsory component in the next year one, because UGC has already provided RDM trainings to the university in the first half year in this year. So they think you are trained, you as a researcher are trained to have to do some data management work on your research project. So they are thinking to implement this requirement in the grant proposal application next year. Please keep an eye on this, on any updates, and we will keep you posted. Other than UGC, for other funding agencies in the world, they also have different RDM requirement in their funding application. For example, the UK Medical Research Council, they ask you to include a data management plan, and they have their own DMP templates. The Medical Research Council has their own data management plan template. If you are applying for the Medical Research Council grant, then you have to use the research data management plan template. And then this is the National Institute of Health from the US. They also state in the statement that good data management practice and establish the way to share your scientific data generated from the research is important. The Nature, a very important journal, it also states in the reports on standards and availability of data, materials, codes, and protocols. Remember, data includes also other materials and codes and protocols. Why? They state here why someone else has to have good data management practice. Because this data management practice can allow someone else to replicate, reproduce your research, and further build on the claims in your research article. So the replicate to reproduce your research using your shared data is an importance to prove that your claim is valid, and let others to further build on your research statement. And furthermore, here states the Nature. It states what kind of data should be shared. Data like data, materials, like what I stated at the very beginning of this workshop, the codes and the associated protocols. The for PLOS, here for PLOS medicine, but in fact PLOS, all PLOS have the same statements. That's why research data management is important, because it allows someone else to know the legal and ethical restriction and beforehand, and to make sure the data and the research output, the research claim can be replicated in replicated. And here it further states that to validate the replicates, to analyze a new analysis of your research and reinterpretation of your research. Reproduce your research to ensure data are archived, and reduction of the burden on preserving your research data. Because if you share your data, you manage your data well and deposit your data in a research data repository, then it can lessen the burden of you to keep the data. you can, after 10 years, you still can download the data sets from the data repository that you deposited. And it allows data citation and linking of research data for any associated articles, or we further work based on your research data. For Journal of Cultural Analytics, which is more on humanities, here it states how and where you should deposit your data in the Dataverse, for example, and you can see here what's to be included: image file, audio, text, derived data, codes, and you have to clean them and analyze them, and you have to also think about the copyright issue. These are some statements from the publishers and funding agencies, and you can see that within all these statements, they have a lot of words. For example, reproducible, replicable, and repeatable and reusable are the words that has been greatly discussed in the research data management. This words has been discussed for more than 10 years, and in recent few years, there are some keywords that appear in the research data management practice. That is, data management data should be trustworthy. Sharing your data can let your research to be trustworthy in the from others' eyes, and they are transparent to the others, and they prove that your research output is true, and the research ideas are traceable, and the trial elements could be based on, and for further tests, and you can share your data in a timely manner. And this is the FAIR data principle. The FAIR data principle is a very important element in data management. That is saying that your data should be findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable. That's when you share your data, you should ensure your data could be found. Can the data be found on Google? Can your data be found on by some search engine? Or is it limited to only the data repository that you deposit your data? So this is very important, whether your data could be found by search engine instead of just searched by inside the data repository. If it is only searchable inside the data repository, but not by the data, by the search engine, then the discoverability of your data is very limited, because the others have to know that your data is stored in a data repository, a certain data repository. So this is something you have to think about carefully, where you deposit your data and whether your data could be found by others. If your data could be found, can the data files to be accessed? Can someone else access to the files? Can they download the file, or do you embargo someone else to download your data? If someone else can download your data, can they open the file that is interoperable? Can they is the file format easily accessible to the others? Can they have the software to open that data set, data files, and we use the data files that you share? So this is interoperable and reusable. If they can open them, reuse them, make use of the data information inside the data, and this is reusable. So that is FAIR, the FAIR data principle. Your data being found, and your data could be downloaded and accessed, and then your data could be opened and further worked on, and that is your data could be reused. This is the FAIR data principle. The original statement of the FAIR data principle is included in the. One point I would like to raise is the metadata. Data use vocabulary that follows FAIR data principle. Data is the file that you make and deposit into the data repository. And furthermore, you can see meta here. Metadata is the data that you use to describe your data. Data describing your data is metadata. For example, for a book in the library, when you search a book, you can know the title, you can know the publisher, publishing year, who are the authors involved, if it is video recording, who are the producer, those information. Those information that you can find on the website of the library catalog is called metadata. So metadata is the data used to describe another set of data. So these are the original statements of the FAIR data principle. And what happens to the RDM at CHK? Research data management at CHK, we have set up a committee on research data management under the research committee of the university. And the CRDM, the Committee on Research Data Management, is responsible for proposing policies and guidelines. It is also responsible for making recommendations on the developments and implementation of infrastructures, resources, and trainings. It also oversees the implementation of related projects. For example, we have RDM Development Fund. That's if you are at the professor rank or above, you can apply for the fund. If you are interested, you can also contact me in the coming few months. And furthermore, the CRDM advice on the researchers how they can fulfill the requirements from publishers and funders and sharing the data. As for the guidelines, here it tells you how you can find the guidelines. So this is the link to the guideline. You can click simply to lib.chk.edu.hk. That is the library website. When you mouse over the research support toolbar here, the research data service tab is here. And when you click to research data service, you can find the guideline here in the second paragraph. And this is around a 4 to 5 page document that you have to refer to when you do your research. This is the guideline on how you do your research data management. And the guideline on research data management covers the ownership of data. If you do the research in CHK and you are affiliated or use resources from CHK to do your research, then the ownership of the research data belongs to the university. This is very clear that your research outputs as well as the data are owned by the university. On the other hand, the guidelines also mention about the general principles, for example, the FAIR data principle, and also the policies that are involved at CHK. It also give you some guidance on data management planning, data collection, analysis, dissemination, and preservation. So these are the policies from the university, and we here the policies at of CHK also refers to some of the policies here. For example, the copyright and intellectual property rights and the privacy issue are something that you have to be aware of when you do your research data management planning and research data management. And in the university, under the CRDM, we are associated with. There are also members, representatives from the graduate school, and The graduate school has newly implemented a new requirement for the RPG, research postgraduate students, and postdoctoral students admitted in 2022 and 23 or after. So the first year student last year and the first year student this year, that is the first and second student of the RPG and TPG students, doctoral students, they have to take this course, Basics of Research Data Management, Basics of Research Data Management. This is a Blackboard self-learning module. Blackboard, and it appears, the whole course appear in the Blackboard, and for this course, it tells you a lot of information about the basics and the fundamental knowledge about research data management. And with this, you all first year and second year RPG and postdoctoral students should complete this module within the first year of study. If you are the second year student this year and you haven't finished this, please be reminded you have to complete it as soon as possible. And this is a graduation requirement. Even if you finish your thesis and pass through your oral defense, but you haven't finished this module, you cannot graduate. And we have talked about sharing data, how data should be reproduced and to be shared. It involves the topic of open data. And for open data, it is also involved to open access and citizen science. Open access means opening your research outputs, for example, journal articles in open access journal. So with also the citizen to public involvement, that creates the topic of citizen science. With these three topics, open data, open access, and open science, it gives the topic of open science. And this open science is a huge topic in recent years that you have to be aware of. And for CHK, we are also promoting the open science initiatives. And please look forward to our further events on research open science. And open data, sharing your data to the public is part of the open science initiatives. What are the benefits of research data management? It can be divided into, for researchers, to your research field and to the society. For researchers, if you share your research data management at the end of your research projects, then you can have better visibility and citations to your research output. And you can, when you get more visibility and get more citations, you will have better research impact and can get more collaborations, not only from CHK colleagues, but also from around the world, for example, from the US or other parts of the world. When someone else would like to use your data, they may need your involvement. So that's increase the collaboration chances. And if you get more research impact, then you will have more career recognition. Maybe in the future, your sharing of data, your research impact from data may be one of the parts in your career promotion. And it also decreased the non-compliance rates. For example, legal, ethical, any copyright issue or IP issue, ethical issue, any sensitive data in your research data management, research data, any requirement from your funders or institutions. So all these informations are the information that you have to be aware of during the research data planning stage, and you can make use of it. This would help you to save time in later stages. For the science, if you have good research data management planning and data management during the stage and sharing your data at the end, it can facilitate data finding and reuse. It enables other new research and new insights on data. It also allows valuable data to be protected. For example, if you have your data, it takes 10 years for you to collect your data. For example, some medical data or some data regarding a child's growth over 10 years time. Then these are very valuable data because it takes time and human resources and also monetary resources. So these are very valuable data, and it can be shared and to be reused for in your field. So it is beneficial to the science, to the academia. It also supports research integrity and reproducibility of your research, because it allows someone else to check whether your research statement is valid. To the society, it allows good use and efficient use of the public resources. It also can have better quality research and for better decision making, especially from the governments or from some company. They make use of your research idea to further make commercial products. And it also increased the chances for citizen science in the open science scheme, it increased the transparency and trust in the science. For transparency, it means you open up your research data and someone else can check whether your research output, research statement is valid. And then if it is valid or it is a posture that you share your data, it means my data and my research output is trustworthy. So this is some benefits to the society, to the research academia, as well as to the researcher. So next, I will talk about some actual action in research data management. What are the actual action? For example, we have to write the data management plan at the beginning stage. Data management plan is a written document that states how the research data are managed throughout the research process. So it is written as the yellow points at the very early stage, at the proposal stage, and it may be a compulsory component from the funders and publishers. And at CHK, we provide a tool for you to support you to write the data management plan. And it is on dmp2.org. And we will have a workshop. We already organized 2 workshops in last month about data management plan writing. We will have further 1 workshop in this month later. Please register for our workshop on DMP if you are interested to learn more about it. So why DMP is needed? Funding agencies' requirement promotes fair plan for human resources and financial support, save time, because you save time in later stages, because you already plan ahead how you manage your data, and you just follow along your plan. And of course, you can modify your plan from time to time and identify any weaknesses early on and put a record of what you intended to do. These are the topics that you are included in the data collection. I'm not going into details here, but I will discuss these in details in the data management plan workshop. If you are interested, register for that workshop, please. And at CHK, we provide a CHK DMP template, and it covers all the topics in the previous slides. And this data management plan template is easy to use because it provides you a lot of chat boxes and radio buttons for you to learn about how a data management plan is like. And we hope to make your life easier by making check boxes or radio buttons for you to answer all the questions required. Okay, and here I will go into some details about other stages of the data life cycle. Data collection, it can be in the lab book, during the lab or your field work. You will collect some raw data. You may have to work out some documentation and description of your experiments and work up data. You may have to make reference to some literature. My experience tells me that I have to write down which book I refer to or which article I referred to at this point of work, because because probably in the first year of your research, you will do a lot of data collection and references to current literature, but eventually when you write your thesis after 2 years, for example, you start to write the actual part of your graduation requirement, the thesis, which is important. Then you have to refer back to a lot of your data or literature that you referred to at the first year, in the first year. Then my experience can tell you that you will probably lose some knowledge about what is that data set about, from which article did I refer this statement that I'm referring to. A very small point from a very small specific article that you have to refer back to and write footnotes for that. This is very important that you make reference to all this and make notes in your notebook or your research raw data at the very beginning stage. And your research idea and your discussion of your research, maybe you discuss your research over a cup of drinks in the bar, then you have also to record down all this information, because after some years you will lose your memory. So all this information are part of the data collection that you have to write down in your lab notebook in physical format or in electronic format, for example, in your iPad. This is the way you collect your data. So for your documentation, all this documentation avoid your loss of memory and allow someone else to understand your data in the future, because you have to share your data in a data repository and you have to state some metadata. Metadata is the data that you use to describe your data. Data describing your data is called metadata. So when you this kind of metadata can allow someone else to understand your data, create documentation when you acquire your data sets, and improve it at the end of the project. You can also write the readme.test. This is from computer science. Computer scientists write readme.test when they write a program. This allows someone else to understand how they can refer to your program, or they can refer to your data set. So the documentation could be a variable level or item level. It could also be in a higher level, that is file level or database level, if you have a very great database. And if you would like to further higher the level of your documentation, you can also write your documentation on project level. That is giving a general description about your project. For file organization, when you store your data, for example, here you store your data, you may divide them by projects into different folders, and then further by dates, by researcher, by research notebook number, by sample number, by experimental type or instruments, by data type, or any other forms of information that you may make reference on. So this is how you can organize your file with folders. Remember to create folders in your computer, in your file drive, data drive, so you can make good use of this hierarchical level file structure and trace back to your files in the future. And when you save your file, there is some conventions to naming your data. It is best to have some chronological order, but for you to use the chronological order, try to think whether you will use the YYYY, that is year comes first, or the date comes first. I would strongly suggest you to use the year come first, because, for example, this is the year 2021 come first, 2021, 22, 23, and then the difference in the month and the dates is not a problem to the chronological reading of your data file names. But if you put the dates first, for example, the second and then fifth and then the third, then you will see that the year 2031 will come first. So this is not order, not in a good order. So this is how you should think about your data naming. If you are using chronological order, I would strongly suggest to have the year come first. And the file name length, the length of your file name, it should not be too short, because they should be identifiable to know what the file name is, what the file is about. But it should not be too long, because too long file name cannot be read by some software. It should not include some special characters. It should be also be sequential files. For example, 01, 02, 03. If you have single digits, it is best to have 0 before, because it can be differentiated from the 10th digit. For example, 11, 12, 13. If you do not put the 0 here, it will the order will be 1, 11, 12, 13 up to 19, and then 2, 20, 21, 22, 23, something like that. So the sequential files is also an important way for you to note. The version 1, version 2, or even dot version 3.1 or 3.2, something like that. Naming convention, the file name should be unique and indicates what the file contains in line with your file research structure. So first draft, second draft, something like that. And scannable, common, the file name should be common, no space, because some software or some OS does not support space reading. For example, if you are using command line, then space will give some kind of problems when you have those kinds of command line work on other OS. It is good to use underscore, the first one, the hyphen, or the camel cases like this. For documentation, you should note down the processing, the summary, how the previous work on the project or location, the funding information, the primary contacts. Are you, as the PI, the primary contact, or your RA will help you with the data management contact? And your name and title, if you are not the primary contact, other people working on the project, location of the data, organization. The relationship between the file that make up the data set. Do you make up all the data files, or do you collect some other files from somewhere else? And the format of the files, this is very important because it allows others to know how they can open your file. Which version of Microsoft Word should they use to open your file? Will there be any distortion of your data if they use another version of this Microsoft Office or Excel to open your data? So this is the file format is very important. Documentation, metadata. This is very important because metadata is data about data, and you have to state all this information when you deposit your data in a data repository. It should be standardized. There are different formats, and it should be structured and human and machine readable. For standard formats, for example, simple Dublin Core is a format used by our CHK Research Data Repository. In fact, at the front end, you are asked to provide the data, the title, the creators, the subjects, and so on and so forth. But at the back end, it is derived into some machine-readable formats. That is the JSON format, and this is the machine-readable format. And for this, it is the Dublin Core, simple Dublin Core metadata standard. You may not need to pay strong attention to which metadata standard it is your data repository is using. But when you write the data management plan, you may be asked about this. So you may have to notice, for example, our CHK Research Data Repository is based on the DDI as well as the simple Dublin Core. Metadata is to allow someone else to make citation of your data, make your data sets discoverable and reusable. For example, this is like a screenshot from our data repository. Our data repository will provide you a data DOI. A DOI link for others to cite your data sets when they make use of your data. You can also share this data link DOI to others so that they can access to your data file deposited in our CHK Research Data Repository. Even if our CHK Research Data Repository move to somewhere else, they can this link is still valid. If you have to analyze your data, that is the green ring, the analysis part. Think carefully whether you are using the raw data for data analysis, or you would like to use some massage or even analyze the data for data sharing or data reuse. And the quality control, will you clean up your data? How do you clean your data? By, for example, by some OpenRefine, the software called OpenRefine for data cleaning. Spreadsheet, best practice. This is the year. Will the year come first or the dates come first? Or are you using the US dates format or the UK dates format? So the first two parts here is different between the UK dates format as well as the US dates format. So be very careful about which dates formats you are using, because when both dates and month goes below 12 or below, then it will be very confusing. For example, September the 1st. Is it January the 9th or September the 1st? So this is the thing you have to think carefully about. So this is the spreadsheet's best practice and managing research code. The code that you use to analyze your data is also very important to analyze your research for data sharing. Storage and backup, there are lots of copies, lots of, this motto, lots of copies and keep stuff safe, logs. So we have a 3-2-1 backup rule. So at least 3 copies of a file and 2 different on 2 different media and at least 1 offsite. This is the 3-2-1 backup rule. It applies to your data collection, data storage, and as well as in the future, if you are creating a system, you are also advised to have a 3-2-1 backup server, for example. Good hardware for storage and backup. What good hardware? Computer, of course, are good hardware. External hard drives are good hardware, or local drives or servers. For example, on the Google Drive or the 365 Microsoft OneDrive. Here, one point to the external drive. There are very often saying that we have the thumb drive that is very small one, which is easily accessible, but it is also easily lost to somewhere else. So the local drive, for external drive, we on research data management, we strongly advise you not to use thumb drive. For very small size thumb drive, please not using them for very important data resources, because they can be lost to somewhere else. You very often hear that from the news that someone lost their memory drive, their data sets, with sensitive information, and it incurs some privacy issue, and it involves some other governmental department. So after attending this workshop, I hope you will not be the next one on the news about this kind of sensitive privacy issue. So be aware that not to save your information in thumb drive as much as possible. For file formats, we strongly encourage you to use file formats which can be encoded, but in different formats. For example, text formats, it is good to use text format, CSV, HTML, JSON, or XML, which are machine and human readable. But for XLL, XLS, or DOCX, they are only readable by some very specific software. For example, a very specific type of Microsoft Word or Microsoft Excel. Then this file format is not advisable. This file format is not advisable, but because they are only readable by very specific version of the software. But we strongly advise to use machine and human readable file formats. For file preservation and file formats, we also suggest not to use compressed files. So uncompressed files, non-proprietary files, open and documented, and use the standard file formats with standard representation. So this row here are the recommended formats, and this row here, this column here is not recommended. Except TXT, TIFF, MP3, these are some recommended, but not this part. Obsolescence. Some software will, or some storage media, data formats, hardware, or software will obsolete after some time. For example, nowadays you cannot find the Microsoft Office 2010 furthermore. So this is the obsolescence of the software. Floppy disk, this kind of floppy disk, which appears around 20 to 30 years ago. CD-ROM is closer to this year, but it's still not easy to find data CD-ROM to read the data CD-ROM or DVD. So this kind of obsolescence of media or software, hardware, you have to bear in mind, so not to save only in this kind of software and hardware, but you have to think about how to transform your data into formats that will be up to date, up to the technology. For obsolescence, Excel migration, data migration, if you are using having some file formats which will be obsolete soon, so transfer them into some newer formats. If the software is obsolete, then try to find some other way to open the file and transform to another format. Format conversion, not to use a specific file version, but use some text and machine and human readable file formats, for example, the .csv. Preservation, rigorous backup schedule. Do you back up your information every 3 weeks or every day or every month? Strategies to prevent data loss, how you store your data, how many copies, file formats, data compression not preferred, checksum, that is a series of number, 40 digits, called, for example, MD5. If you put a check for the MD5 of a file, it gives you this series of number. After you modify, just by adding one space to a Word document, this checksum will be different. It tells you, this checksum tells you whether the file is what you download from somewhere else, or is it the exact file that you have from somewhere else. And the version control, this is regarding to the preservation plan. How many years should you keep your files? 3 years, 10 years, any longer? Is it of very important value that can be permanently kept? For CHK, we advise you in the CHK guidelines on research data management, at least 5 years of retention period is advised. Sensitive information, anonymize any sensitive information and provide them to ensure the integrity, the quality, and transparency of your research. If it involves some other staff or other participants, for example, your patients, you have to tell these involved participants and staff the purpose, the methods, and the intended possible use of your research data. And they have to sign up some consents. They allow you to use the data, or they agree with your how you process the data. For sensitive data, it involves some direct identifiers, name, address, and so on and so forth. These are some indirect identifiers. For example, gender, birthplace, and birthplace. These are called indirect identifiers because when some of this information even does not include some direct identifiers, only with a few of these indirect identifiers, you may also identify someone's name or identification. So these indirect identifiers should also be worked on before you share your data. How do you work on? You usually anonymize all these direct and indirect identifiers before sharing the data. You can mask the sensitive information, suppress them, or you can also de-identify some data, aggregate some information. For example, the grouping the age 27 to age 30 together as a group as age 26 to 30. That is one age group as a whole. When you share your data, hashing or permutation, that is giving some hashtag like the MD5, a series of numbers to tell that to mask up certain direct or indirect information. Privacy issue, while you are doing your research at CHK, you have to follow the university's protection of personal data privacy rule policy from CHK. At the same time, you have also to follow the Hong Kong government's rule, the legal rule, the Personal Data Privacy Ordinance, Chapter 486. This is the rule in Hong Kong about data privacy. If you are working with some data from the on medicine and associated with the hospital in the New Territories East cluster, then you have to think carefully and read carefully the guidelines from the CREC that is the joint CHK NT East cluster, the hospital in the NT. They have a lot of guidelines on how you work on your data, and you have to get the consent from them when you use the data from the hospitals. Furthermore, there are trainings from the research ethics provided by ORKTS, human subjects survey and behavioral publication, and laboratory animals. So these are some ethics. They will also involve some data ethics inside. So be aware, and you may have to take these certificates and take these courses online and get the certificates if it is a requirement from your faculty. Publication as data sharing, it involves the intellectual property. Will it, do you own the property, IP of the data you share, or do you get the data from somewhere else and the IP belongs to someone else? If you are using someone else's data, you have to cite someone else when you share your data. Cite and acknowledge them. And will you share to the public or share to your collaborators or to a local group, research group, for example? And at CHK, we provide a CHK Research Data Repository for you to share your data. And this is the link. We have fully launched it, and you can manage your data, upload and manage the data sets, whether to publish or not publish them. And for getting a URL, a private URL for peer review of your article and data sets. All this can be done on our CHK Research Data Repository, and it is based on the trust data repository principle. We will talk a lot about this research data repository, how you deposit your data in the repository in a workshop later this month. If you are interested and or there is a need for you to learn about it, please join our workshop. Data reuse allows others to reuse your data, find your data, and cite your data. So these permanent identifier, for example, DLI, the permanent URL, and the archival resource key are some identifiers for others to cite your data. And that's all for what I would like to share about understanding research data management. And here are some services provided on research data management from the library. Please feel free to join our workshops. If you have any questions, you can go to our send me an email or request a consultation session. We also have a lot of library guides. Just type RDM CHK RDM on Google or any website or search engine, and the library guides on RDM will come up, and it will direct you to all our subpages on research data management. And this is the DMP service and data repository service we have mentioned just now. And there are a lot of events happening in CHK in this semester. For example, we have the data analytics practice opportunity. It welcomes undergraduates and postgraduate students to join and use actual data from CHK to do some data analytics projects. Please share this news with your students, and if you are a student, join our, please see if you have the data analytical skills, and it is funded with $8,000 for each group of each team working on this event, this project. We will have also other workshops. Other than that, we will have other workshops in the coming few weeks. Please join us. And we, for postgraduate students, we also have a series of workshops under the ILP Independent Postgraduate Learning Program, which is co-organized with the CLEAR. So if you have students, we will further talk about other than those information which are shared in this workshop, we will share more information on different aspects with specific focus on some fields. And this is the reference for this workshop. Please you can make use of it. Thank you very much for coming to this workshop. We look forward to seeing you in other events of our research data management projects. Thank you very much.